I used to be the guy who checked the credit card statement the same day it posted. Auto transfer to savings. 2-year emergency fund. The boring kind of responsible that makes your friends roll their eyes. My wife, Jenna, called it my financial blood pressure. Always monitored, never dramatic. So when an unfamiliar number from a local bank lit up my phone on a Tuesday afternoon, I almost let it go to voicemail. I was in my truck outside a job site, eating a sad turkey sandwich, thinking about lumber costs and whether we could squeeze a short vacation into September. I answered on the third ring. A woman with a calm, professional voice said, "Hi, may I speak with Michael Avery?" "Yes. This is Linda from Hawthorne National. I'm calling regarding an account where you've been listed as the heir. We've been trying to reach you by mail, but the letters were returned." I actually laughed like it was a scammy punchline. "I'm sorry, an heir to what?" "A deposit account in your name as beneficiary. The primary account holder passed last month. We need to verify your identity and schedule an appointment." My first thought was my grandmother, but her affairs were settled years ago, down to the last antique spoon. My second thought was that this was fraud, some new trick where they speak nicely and steal your social security number. So I did what I always do. I got calm. I asked for a callback number. I told her I'd come into a branch in person. I hung up and stared at my sandwich like it had offended me. Money doesn't appear out of nowhere. Not in my world. Not until it did. That night, I told Jenna in the kitchen while she chopped onions for spaghetti. The smell made my eyes water, which was unfortunate because it looked like I was already emotional. "Some bank called," I said, trying to sound casual. "Said I'm the beneficiary on an account someone left me." Jenna paused, knife mid-air. "Someone who?" "That's the thing." She didn't say. Just the account holder. Jenna did this thing where she tries to be supportive, but it comes out like suspicion wearing a cardigan. "Are you sure it's real?" "I'm going to the branch tomorrow. In person." She nodded and the knife came down again. Chop chop. "Could it be your dad?" "My dad's been dead for 8 years. Cancer. We did hospice in our living room." I paid the bills and argued with insurance and watched him shrink into the couch like a deflating balloon. If there had been money hidden anywhere, I would have found it. I was the executor. I was the spreadsheet. "No," I said. "Dad didn't have secrets. He had medical debt." Jenna's voice softened. "Okay, then who?" I didn't have an answer, and I didn't like that feeling. I liked numbers because numbers stayed put when you looked at them. That night, I lay awake thinking about the returned mail Linda mentioned. Our address hasn't changed in 5 years. If letters were returned, someone used an old address, like the condo I had right after college. Like someone who knew me then. The next day, I sat in a little office that smelled like printer toner and cinnamon air freshener. Linda was real. Her badge was real. The bank was real. The folder on her desk had my name typed neatly on a sticker. "I'll need 2 forms of ID," she said. And my hands were steady when I passed them over, because steady hands are what I do. She clicked through screens while I watched her eyebrows lift. Tiny, controlled, but it happened. "Mr. Avery," she said, and her tone changed the way it changes when a waitress says, "Are you sure you want the large?" "What?" I asked, already bracing. "The account balance is significant." That word, significant, felt like it belonged on a bridge or a historical marker, not in my lap. "How significant?" I said. She rotated her monitor slightly and pointed. I leaned forward and my stomach dropped as if I'd missed a step on the stairs. $487,219.63. I stared until the digits blurred. I made a noise that I'm embarrassed to remember, like a short exhale of disbelief. "That can't be right." "It is," Linda said. "The account was opened 26 years ago. There have been regular deposits, and it accrued interest." "Who?" My mouth was dry. "Who was the account holder?" Linda hesitated like she was about to say something delicate. "The account holder was listed as Thomas Avery. My dad's name was Thomas Avery." I felt the room tilt just slightly, the way it does when you stand up too fast. "My father died 8 years ago." Linda's face didn't change much, but her eyes did. According to the death certificate we received, Thomas Avery passed away last month. I laughed again, but there was no humor in it. Then that's not my father. Linda folded her hands. Do you have a relative with the same name? I didn't. My dad was a junior for a man he hated. There were no Thomases left. I said that, and Linda nodded slowly. Then, she said, we may be dealing with a different situation. Outside the bank, the sun was too bright, the world too normal for what I'd just seen. I sat in my truck with my hands on the steering wheel and thought, someone named Thomas Avery just died and left me $500,000. And someone used my old address on purpose. That wasn't a gift. That was a message. I went home and didn't tell Jenna right away. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I didn't know how to set it down between us without it detonating. Instead, I drove to my mom's house. My mom lives in the same ranch house we grew up in, with the same creaky hallway and the same wind chimes that clink like teeth. She opened the door in slippers, hair pulled back, and smiled like I was 10 again. Hey, honey, what's wrong? I need to ask you something, I said. My voice sounded too level, even to me. Did you ever know anyone else named Thomas Avery? Her smile hesitated. It was tiny, like Linda's eyebrow lift, but it happened. No, she said too quickly. Why? A bank called me, said I'm beneficiary on an account. Account holder was Thomas Avery. $500,000. My mom's hand went to the doorframe, fingers splayed like she needed to hold herself up. I watched her do the math in her head. The name, the money, the fact that I was standing there with a face that wouldn't let her pretend. She swallowed. Where is this bank? Here, in town. My mom closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, they were wet but not surprised. Oh, she whispered. It finally happened. That's when I felt the first crack in the floor under my feet. Not because of the money, because of the finally. You knew, I said. It wasn't a question. My mom nodded, slow. I knew there was an account. I didn't know it was this much. I leaned in. Who was he? She looked past me, out into her living room where my dad's old recliner still sits like a ghost. Your father, she said, had a brother. I stared. Dad was an only child. She flinched. That's what he told you. The wind chimes outside clicked. My mom's voice went small. He cut him off before you were born. They had a falling out. A brother named Thomas? I said, the words tasting wrong. No, my mom said, and this is where everything tilted harder. Your father was Thomas Avery Jr. His brother was Thomas Avery III. Their father was Thomas. It was a stupid family tradition. I felt stupid for not knowing, but mostly I felt betrayed by my own memories. I thought I knew my family tree like I knew my budget. How do you have a brother with the same name? I said, louder than I meant. My mom's shoulders hunched. Money, she said. It was always money. That night Jenna listened while I told her everything, bank, balance, my mom's confession. Jenna sat on the couch with her knees pulled up, like she was trying to take up less space in a room that had suddenly gotten crowded. So your dad had a secret brother, she said. And this brother, who you never met, left you almost $500,000. Apparently, Jenna's eyes narrowed, not in jealousy, but in the way she looks at a contractor's quote. Why you? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Jenna got up and started pacing. The hardwood creaked with each step. Okay, so maybe your dad cut him off. Maybe the brother felt guilty. Maybe he wanted to make it right. Or maybe there's something else, I said, because by then my brain was a hamster wheel of worst-case scenarios. The money sat between us like a third person. It changed the air. Jenna started doing what I do, starting lists. Student loans, she said, counting on her fingers. Your truck, the roof, and my mom's care. We are not spending it yet, I said immediately. Jenna stopped. I didn't say we were spending it. I'm just saying it could help. I know, I said softer, but we don't know what it is, or what it comes with. That was the moment I realized Jenna and I weren't going to experience this money the same way. To her, it was a rope thrown to a drowning person. To me, it was a snake in the grass. I wanted to believe I was still in control. I wanted to believe money was just a tool. But I'd just seen my mom's face when she said, "It finally happened." Money was never just a tool in my family. It was the thing that turned people into strangers. The next week was paperwork and phone calls. I obtained the death certificate for Thomas Avery III. I requested probate documents. I did it the way I do everything. Organized, methodical, emotionally contained. Thomas Avery III had lived 2 states away. He had no spouse, no children. He'd been a machinist, according to the obituary. Quiet. Loved fishing. One of those vague summaries that tells you nothing. Then the first twist hit me in the face. I got a call from a lawyer named David Rusk. He sounded like he talked for a living, because he did. "Michael Avery," he said. "I represent the estate of Thomas Avery III. Congratulations on being named beneficiary." "I didn't know he existed until a week ago," I said. "That's not unusual," David said, as if hidden uncles were a normal Tuesday. "I want to know why," I said. "Why me?" There was a pause, paper shuffling. "Because," David said, "Thomas Avery III believed you were his son." I stopped breathing for a second, like my body had to reboot. "I'm sorry," I said very slowly. "What did you just say?" "He believed you were biologically his," David repeated, and his voice stayed smooth, like he was reading a grocery list. "That's impossible," I said. "My dad raised me. My dad died in our living room. My whole childhood is photos of me sitting on his shoulders at the county fair." "I'm not stating a fact," David said carefully. "I'm stating the decedent's belief, as documented in a letter left with the account paperwork." I felt heat creep up my neck. "So he left me money because he thought my mom cheated?" "Again," David said. "I'm only conveying the contents of the letter." I hung up and stared at the wall until Jenna asked if I was okay, and I couldn't answer because my throat had closed like a fist. I called my mom. She answered on the second ring. "Michael, did you sleep with him?" I demanded, and then hated myself for how harsh it sounded. My mom went silent. That silence was my answer before she ever spoke. "Oh my God," I whispered. My mom started crying. "I was 23, she said, like that explained anything. "Your father and I were broke. We were fighting all the time. And Thomas, your uncle, he came around and he helped." "With what?" I snapped. "Money." "Yes," she sobbed. "He paid the mortgage for 3 months when your father got laid off. He bought groceries. He was kind. And I was lonely." I slid down the kitchen cabinet until I was sitting on the floor. The tile was cold through my jeans. "So he thinks I'm his," I said. "I don't know," my mom whispered. "I don't know. It wasn't just money anymore. It was my identity being priced and packaged inside a bank account." Jenna insisted I get a DNA test before we did anything else. She said it gently, but there was steel underneath. "I'm not trying to blow up your life," she said, holding my hand across the dining table. "I'm trying to keep you from drowning in questions." I agreed because, for once, my usual tools, logic, budgeting, calm, weren't working. We did one of those mail-in kits. I swabbed my cheek in the bathroom while the shower ran, like the steam could hide my shame. While we waited, I went back to the bank and asked Linda for copies of any letters attached to the account. Linda handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in neat, old-fashioned handwriting. I didn't open it in the bank. I opened it in my truck with my hands shaking so hard I had to press the paper against the steering wheel to steady it. The letter smelled faintly like cigarettes and old paper. It started, "Michael, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've gotten the call. I'm sorry it had to be this way." My eyes flicked over the words, hungry and nauseated. "I don't know if you're mine. I know your mother. I know the timing. I know I saw myself in you the first time you threw a baseball and didn't flinch. Your father raised you. He was better at that than I ever could have been. But I've carried 2 things my whole life: guilt and money." He wrote about growing up with a father who treated money like love and love like a transaction. He wrote about how he and my dad fought over their father's small inheritance, how it split them. He wrote about sending my mom cash as a friend, and then how friendship turned into something else. Then another twist, buried like a hook. The money in this account isn't clean. It never was. He admitted he'd skimmed from the machine shop where he worked, small amounts, for years, and laundered it through deposits so it would look like savings. He said he justified it because he was underpaid, because the owner was corrupt, because everyone cheats. I'm leaving it to you because you seem like the kind of man who would do something right with something wrong. I sat there with the letter shaking in my hands. $500,000, and it was dirty. If I took it, I wasn't just inheriting money. I was inheriting someone else's sin, wrapped up with my mother's secret and my father's ghost. I drove home like I was carrying a live bomb in my chest. For a few days, I didn't tell Jenna about the isn't clean part. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because I needed one night where she looked at me like her husband, not a problem to solve. But secrets don't shrink when you keep them. They ferment. It came out when she found me in the garage at midnight, sitting on a bucket with the letter unfolded on my lap, staring at the same line like it would change. She read it in silence. When she got to, isn't clean, she made a sound like she'd bitten down on something hard. So it's stolen, she said flatly. It's skimmed, I said, as if a nicer word mattered. Jenna looked at me. Michael, that's theft. I know. And you were going to not tell me? I was going to tell you, I said, too quickly. Jenna's eyes glistened. You just wanted to keep it possible. That hurt because it was true. Money makes you imagine futures you didn't let yourself imagine before. It makes you soft in places you didn't know were tender. The next morning, I called the lawyer, David. I told him about the letter. I asked what my legal exposure was if I accepted. David sighed like he'd been waiting. The bank account is payable on death, he said. It transfers to you outside probate. The estate is mostly closed already. That doesn't answer my question. It answers it legally, he said. Morally is your problem. Then he added, almost casually, but you should know something else. Great, I muttered. What now? There's a second claimant, David said. A woman. She filed paperwork contesting the beneficiary designation. My stomach clenched. Who? Her name is Marla Avery, he said. She says she's Thomas's wife. I stared at the wall. He wasn't married, I said automatically, as if I knew anything about this man at all. David's voice stayed calm. She provided a marriage certificate. That was twist number 3. The secret uncle wasn't just secret. He had a whole hidden life with a wife who now wanted the money. And suddenly it made sense why the bank's letters were returned. Someone didn't want me reached until it was too late to stop it. Money wasn't just revealing character flaws. It was revealing people. Marla contacted me herself 2 days later. She didn't call. She sent a message through Facebook from an account with a profile picture of her holding a bass fish, smiling like she'd caught something more valuable than dinner. We need to talk. You know why? I almost deleted it. I almost blocked her and went back to my safe, boring life. But the money had already climbed inside my head. It had rearranged the furniture. We met at a diner off the highway. Laminated menus, fluorescent lights, coffee that tasted like burnt pennies. Marla arrived in a denim jacket and clean boots. She looked late 50s, maybe early 60s, with tired eyes and a mouth that didn't rest in kindness. She slid into the booth across from me like we were negotiating a used car. So, she said, looking me up and down. You're Michael. I guess you're Marla. She snorted. I'm his wife. Or I was, until he died and decided to haunt me with paperwork. Why didn't I know about you? I asked. Marla laughed once. Because Tom was a coward. I flinched at her calling him Tom. It made him feel real. She stirred her coffee, not drinking it. We didn't have kids. He didn't want them. Said he had enough mess already. My jaw tightened. Marla leaned forward. That money is mine. I lived with that man for 22 years. I cleaned his blood off the bathroom floor when he started coughing up clots. I watched him hide bank statements in the freezer behind frozen peas like I was the enemy. If it was hidden from you, I said, how is it yours? Her eyes sharpened. Because I'm the spouse. That's how. Then why did he list me as beneficiary? Marla's mouth twisted. Because he was obsessed with you. She said it like it was disgusting. He watched you from a distance. Came home from trips and talked about you like you were a TV show. Michael bought a house. Michael got a promotion. Michael doesn't waste money. Like you were proof he didn't ruin everything. I felt my skin crawl. How did he know those things? Marla's gaze flicked down to my hands. You ever wonder why your mom suddenly got cash when you were a teenager? Why she never had to refinance? Why she stopped working nights? My throat went tight. I remembered my mom quitting her second job and saying, things are just better now. I remembered thinking it was my dad's overtime. Marla continued. He funneled money to her for years, not huge amounts, enough to feel important, enough to feel like a hero. I sat back dizzy. So he paid my mom, I said, and saved for me and hid it from you. Marla's smile was cold. And now he's dead, and he wants you to win. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were photocopies of receipts, notes, a handwritten ledger, deposits, dates, amounts. At least half of that account, she said, came from our joint income, from our life. I'm not walking away because he had a fantasy about being your dad. It wasn't just a moral dilemma anymore. It was a fight. The DNA results came in the following week. I opened the email on my phone in the bathroom at work, because apparently I like suffering in small tiled rooms. The screen loaded. The words sat there like a verdict. Paternity, 99, 97% probability of relationship with Thomas Avery 3. I gripped the sink. My hands went numb. For a full minute, my brain tried to reject it, like it was a prank, like numbers could lie. Then the truth hit. My father, the man who raised me, might not be my biological father at all. I drove home in a fog and handed Jenna my phone. She read it, then looked at me with a softness that made my chest ache. "Oh, Mike," she whispered. I waited for anger, disgust, anything. Instead, she pulled me into her arms and held me while I stared over her shoulder at our living room. The couch we bought used, the rug we vacuum every Sunday, the framed photo of my dad holding our newborn niece. My calm cracked then, not into yelling or drama, into something quieter and worse. Grief mixed with embarrassment, like realizing your whole life had been built on a misunderstanding. My mom called that night like she could feel the shift. I didn't answer, couldn't. The next day I did, and I didn't yell. I just spoke like a man taking inventory of a burned house. "You knew," I said. "You knew he could be my father." My mom sobbed. "I didn't know, Michael. I suspected, and I buried it." "Dad never knew?" I asked. Silence. "Mom," she whispered. "I think he did." That was twist number 4, and it recontextualized everything. My dad's quiet resentment sometimes, his stubborn pride about taking care of what's mine, his refusal to accept money from anyone. Maybe he'd known and stayed anyway. Or maybe he'd suspected and hated her and loved me and swallowed it whole. Either way, I suddenly saw my childhood through a new lens. Not a stable home, but a truce maintained by silence and bills paid on time. Money hadn't just exposed secrets. It had been used to patch them. Here's the part where I thought the crisis would end. David, the lawyer, suggested mediation with Marla. We sat in a conference room with stale water bottles and a framed print of a sailboat. Marla glared at me like I'd stolen her life. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I didn't ask for this," I said. "I didn't know he existed." Marla's laugh was sharp. Funny how the money always finds the right person. David proposed a split. Marla would drop her claim if I paid her $150,000. She'd keep the house she lived in, apparently in his name, and I'd keep the rest without a prolonged legal fight. Jenna squeezed my knee under the table. Her nails dug in slightly. It was a plea, end it. I agreed. I told myself it was fair. I told myself it was the responsible choice. I told myself we'd pay off our debts, fix the roof, set up a fund for Jenna's mom's care. We'd donate some because I needed to feel clean. We'd breathe. I walked out feeling like I'd navigated the storm. The money would come, the mess would fade, and I could go back to being the guy with the spreadsheet. That night, Jenna and I opened a bottle of cheap champagne we'd been saving for something. We sat on the back porch, bundled in blankets, and for the first time in weeks we talked about normal things. Jenna rested her head on my shoulder. "We're going to be okay," she murmured. And for a few hours I believed it. That was the false resolution, the moment I thought money could be contained. Can't. 2 days after the mediation agreement, I got another call from Linda at the bank. Her tone was different, tight, careful. "Mr. Avery, there's been a hold placed on the account." My stomach went cold. "By who?" "By the IRS, she said. I actually laughed because it was either that or scream. Of course. Linda explained that the bank received a levy notice tied to Thomas Avery III's social security number. Unpaid taxes, penalties, interest. It wasn't a small amount either. "How much?" I asked, already feeling like I was standing under a waterfall. Linda inhaled. 207,000. Jenna heard my side of the conversation and went pale. She mouthed, "No, I called David." He cursed under his breath for the first time since I'd met him, which was weirdly comforting. "I asked for tax clearance," he said. "The estate reported minimal assets. This account, because it transferred outside probate, didn't show up in the same way." "So they can take it?" I asked. "They can take his," David said. "And until it transfers, it looks like his." "What happens to Marla?" I asked, thinking of the $150,000 we'd promised. David sighed. "Your agreement isn't enforceable if the funds aren't available. She'll come after you personally." So the money I thought would solve our problems now threatened to create new ones. Jenna's face did that thing where she tries to stay composed, but fear leaks out around the edges. "We don't have $150,000, she whispered, like she was confessing a sin. I knew. We had a responsible life, not a wealthy one. I thought about the line from the letter. "Isn't clean." Of course the IRS found it. Dirty money leaves fingerprints. That night Jenna and I fought for the first time in years about something that wasn't the dishwasher or the calendar. We fought about who I was now. "You want to keep it anyway," she accused, tears shining. "Even knowing it's poisoned." "I want to survive," I snapped back. "I want to not get crushed by someone else's mess." Jenna shook her head. "And if it crushes us?" I didn't have a calm answer anymore. Marla didn't wait long. She called me furious after she heard about the levy. "You think you can hide behind the government?" she hissed. "You think you can promise me money and then shrug?" "It's not transferred," I said. "The IRS." "I don't care," she said. "I have my own lawyer. I will put a lien on your house. I will garnish your wages. You understand me?" I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the wood grain like it contained instructions. Jenna stood behind me, arms folded tight across her chest. "I didn't do this to you," I said, and my voice finally cracked. "He did." Marla was silent for a beat. Then her voice softened in the worst way, like she was almost enjoying my pain. "He did it to both of us," she said. "But he chose you." After I hung up, Jenna asked quietly, "Why would he do that? Really?" I looked at the letter again, the part about guilt and money. I thought about my dad. My real dad in every way that mattered, working overtime while my mom took secret cash. I thought about Thomas III watching me like a project, a redemption arc with a bank routing number. Then I got another email from the DNA company, of all things. A new match. Close family. A half-sister. Her name was Rachel. She'd already messaged me. "Hi. I think we have the same biological father. I'm sorry. I didn't know how else to reach you." I stared at her profile picture. She had my nose. My same tight, cautious smile. Money had introduced me to a wife, an IRS levy, and now a sibling I never knew existed. It wasn't just changing my understanding of other people. It was changing my map of myself.